Hi Jamie, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this interview with me. As you know, because we've spoken before, one of my goals with Be Who You Want to Be is to provide some of the best health and wellness tips from some of the top visionaries around the world that could really further enhance leadership development in kids, because as you know, that's really something that's important to me. So your fun and inspired and creative approach to food and nutrition and health has really captivated me, and I would love to share that energy and insight with our community. So you're welcome. So with that being said, I have a few questions that I'd love to ask you.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my first question, just to kind of get the ball rolling,
Mm-hmm.
can you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure, absolutely. As a nutritionist, I got my degree at Ryerson University in Toronto. They have an excellent food and nutrition program. So I did my undergrad there, was wonderful, very thorough, and I felt at the end of it, very prepared to practice as a nutritionist. However, I decided to further my education and pursue my master's. So as a grad student right now, I'm just furthering my education in nutrition at the University of Toronto. It's the Dalai Lama School of Public Health. So it sounds like the Dalai Lama, but unfortunately he's not there. But it's okay. The Dalai Lama School of Public Health is a wonderful master's program, and my specialty is nutrition, actually community nutrition. So just combining my undergrad in nutrition and food, which was a little more science-based, to now, which is community nutrition, which is a little bit more of the social elements of nutrition. I feel like it's just been a lovely combination, and that's my background.
Cool, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. I like to do this with everyone I interview because it gives people who may be watching this a real opportunity to get to know you guys. So thank you for giving us a little bit of insight into who you are. So my next question, with all the work that you've done so far, with the studying you've done and even the work you're doing with some of the clients you work with, what would you say are the key ingredients for success based on your experience?
So, yeah, success is an interesting question. I was actually recently asked a similar question when I was answering for a magazine interview, and I paused for a second, and I don't know, I guess in terms of success, for me, I think like continuous learning, constantly being on top of what's going on in the nutrition world, keeping on top of studies or different practitioners and insights that, for me, can hopefully guarantee that I'm successful in what I do and my approach with my clients. Also, just keeping an open mind. Nutrition and food, it is a science, but at the same time, it is also, I don't want to say an art, but it's very individual. So keeping an open mind to people's preferences and what life is for them in terms of food and nutrition is very important. I believe in success, being a successful nutritionist. And lastly, being non-judgmental. So just ensuring that when I'm with clients or when I'm in a group setting or whatever it may be, I may have my own philosophies about things, but at the end of the day, I'm more working in a partnership with clients or groups rather than the person who can tell them everything. So just having a non-judgmental attitude.
Cool. I really like everything you wrote, but you said. But the last thing kind of resonates a lot with me because my business is really all about partnering and collaboration and working together and working across different philosophies and different approaches to really helping not only just kids, because there are adults involved in this equation as well, but really helping people to achieve greater in their life. So it was cool to hear you say that.
Good. We're on the same page.
Well,
yeah.
That's what I love.
Yes.
So as you know, we've spoken about this at length before because we've known each other for some time now. My vision with Be Who You Want to Be is to empower children predominantly to become leaders in life. So what I want to know from you is, how do you think food and nutrition play a role in that?
Yeah, in terms of like leadership and the connection, it's interesting. But when you start to think about that connection, it really is quite prominent, just for a few reasons. I mean, health in general, being a healthy individual as a child and growing up into your your teenage years and so on and so forth, to guarantee like to be a leader, you want to feel your healthiest or feel that you're thriving. Food and nutrition is an amazing source for that, to feel strong, and I think that's a great way to guarantee leadership going forward. And yeah, from a food perspective, like feeling passionate about food and interested in food, and knowing, not, you don't have to be a master chef, but knowing how to do a few things in the kitchen and having some confidence in that, those are life skills, right? Like there's a lot of things we learn in school, for example, that are great to know from a knowledge standpoint, but how often can you maybe apply them to a life skill? Food is a necessity for life. So just knowing your way around certain foods and how to prepare is a great guarantee for leadership. So, yeah.
Cool, thank you. I know this may have been a slightly challenging question to link the two together, but I'm always looking for how the people I connect with can contribute to leadership in some form. And being a chiropractor myself, and working in health and wellness for many years, I understand the benefits and the value of taking care of the body and obviously eating well. Because really what that does, it gives you more energy. And the more energy you have, particularly when you're doing something you enjoy and something you value, allows you to lead much more so, which is what you were saying. So thank you for making that connection and for being able to answer that question. I know it was a bit of a tough one.
No, but it's it got my mind thinking in a way that I hadn't thought before, and no, it was great.
Awesome. So my next question for you is, I would like to know, what are some of the superfoods, in your opinion, that could help children stay inspired, alert, engaged, and just ready to take action steps that are important to them?
Yeah, it's a good, when you say the word superfoods, I'm guilty of it as well, but it tends to be like a buzzword right now. In the world of nutrition and food and what have you, what are the superfoods? What top 10 foods should we be eating? And yeah, it's great to know about these specific foods, but at the end of the day, superfoods are really getting back to the basics, like what nature has to offer us and I'm not just talking about a vegetarian standpoint, like I'm talking about just like good quality food, good quality meats, good quality dairy, and then getting to the fruits and vegetables and grains. So like from a superfood perspective, I have to say, for people not to get too caught up on the hottest foods right now, would be more so just trying to eat as balanced as one can, as clean as one can, as non-refined and processed as one can, because ultimately those are the healthier alternatives, are the real superfoods.
Right.
I don't know if you want something more specific. I mean...
Yeah, no. Thank you for kind of reframing that, because I kind of had it in inverted commas in my mind, because I know it's such a big buzzword.
Yeah.
So, based on your knowledge of food in general,
yes,
what would you recommend as really nutritious foods that can help the brain come alive?
Right.
And really expand brain function for children to help them stay focused on things that they're really dedicated to?
Absolutely. Like in terms of alertness and attentiveness, there's certain foods that definitely can boost the power of the brain for that, and just the overall like metabolic process of our body. Foods like if children will eat fish. I mean, you can disguise them if need be into a fish stick form or whatever you need to do to get creative in your kitchen. But fish is excellent. I mean, the essential fatty acids in fish have just outstanding effects on the neurons and the neurological patterns in our brain, and promoting brain health. So if you can get your children to eat fish, if not, I mean, there's other sources, whether it's hemp seed that you can blend into a smoothie for them. There's essential fatty acids in there. Chia, flax, all these amazing seeds that have excellent oils that are really good for attentiveness, alertness, brain health. And also on that note, our brain runs on glucose. So glucose, yes, comes from a lot of things, but ultimately, if you can get glucose from good quality carbohydrates that keep our blood sugar at a stable pace, ultimately the child is not agitated. The child is having a stable blood sugar that keeps them attentive, but at the same time calm. Feeds the brain, that the glucose feeds the brain, and then they're ideally as attentive as they can be, or they want to be, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm gonna challenge your knowledge a little bit.
Yeah,
I've got two other questions I want to ask now.
Yeah.
My first question is in relation to fatty acids.
Yeah.
Why is that important for brain function?
Okay. So I always struggle with this because without sounding too scientific, but at the same time providing some science advice, there's molecular components of these essential fatty acids, predominantly DHA, and I'm pretty sure it's EPA, but now I'm forgetting the word, but I'm pretty sure it's EPA as well. But DHA and EPA, and just in terms of how they interact with how our brain functions. I mean, I can provide people with some links for studies, but there's just been optimal results from how our brain functions when we have those essential, like the key word being essential, those fatty acids that come from there. And I should say the reason why I'm highlighting essential is because we need to get them from something. Our body won't produce them ourselves. Right. If it does, it's in small quantities. We need to get it from good sources of food. So it's essential in our diet to have.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. My next question, in relation to the glucose that fuels the brain, that drives the brain, what are some good sources of really substantial carbohydrates that provide that stable blood sugar glucose input to the body?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try to relate this more to a kid perspective or a children perspective in terms of thinking what they would eat. So, for example, kids love, let's say, noodles, pasta. When noodles are overcooked, they end up becoming what's called a high glycemic index. So they end up becoming something that our body metabolizes very quickly, a surge in our blood sugar, and next thing you know, a little bit of a crash. So that's not a good example of a carbohydrate. However, kids do love noodles. So if we want to make sure that they're eating what they like, but still getting a good source of fuel for their brain, make them noodles, but make sure that they're not overcooked. The Italians like to do it al dente, or I'm not pronouncing it right, but they like to do it that way. And there's a reason for that, not only from in their culture a taste perspective, but from a health perspective, it's a more stable blood sugar for individuals. So for kids, let's use that as an example. Don't overcook the pasta, but still you can feed them a whole grain pasta if they'll try. If not, just you can give them their white pasta if that's the only way, but just don't overcook it. Same goes for potatoes. You can bake potatoes if they like wedges in the shape of fries or what have you. It's a good source of carbohydrate. Don't overly mash them and all that, because that will transform into something that's not a good source of carbohydrate. But again, a wedged potato might be kid-friendly. And the list can go on for good quality crackers or breads. Try to make it a whole grain. That just is a good quality glucose.
Okay, cool. Thank you for clearing that up, because there may be some people who would be watching and wondering, what can I give my kid that's a good source of carbohydrates, that's going to keep them stable. So what I might get you to do, and I'm going to put it in the call at the end on your page, is if you can just provide a link maybe for some things that you know of, or maybe a list that you have.
I'll make a list,
and then they can just download that or click on it and have some great sources
Absolutely.
Of carbs. Cool. So my final question,
yes,
and it kind of relates actually to what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But parents I know, because I've been working with parents for quite a while, but parents they're constantly struggling to find healthy, nutritious food to nourish their kids in the best possible ways. So you kind of already mentioned this, but maybe we can add a little bit more. What advice would you give them that could make that easier for them?
Yeah, I know. It's a tricky one. And my first thing that always comes to mind for parents is don't panic. It's tricky. If you're blessed with a child or children who are very open and will eat whatever you put in front of them, all power to you. But at the end of the day, that's usually not the most common thing. Kids can be nitpicky and there's issues around that. So at the end of the day, I would tell the parents, don't panic. Do the best you can with what you have. Work with what you have. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you don't want your kids to feel that sense of anxiety that you have around food, because then they'll feel it too, and it becomes not a good relationship with food. So try to just have a positive environment, an encouraging environment. Try to maybe set up some sort of game with them that if, they try this, they can scout out something else the next time that they want to try. Come up with certain things that get them excited or engaged. Let them grocery shop, help you with the grocery shop when you're going into the fruit and vegetable aisle. Say, okay, to your son or your daughter. I was going to come up with a fake name, but regardless, whoever, just say to your child, what is it in here that piques your interest? Choose it. Let's incorporate it into tonight's dinner, and just try to get them as excited as they can be and feel involved with their food, and hopefully they'll start incorporating more healthy foods because you're inviting them into the process. And back to what we were talking about before in terms of me providing you a list. Absolutely. Lists come in handy in terms of making sure that maybe there's a few things on the list that you have in your child's diet. So while it may not be 100% healthy, because it's hard with kids and what's surrounding them all the time, at least you can feel rest assured as a parent that, okay, your kid's eating a few things off this list. So I can definitely provide that as information.
Awesome. Thank you. Something you said which kind of resonated with me. I worked with a parent whose 18-month-year-old didn't want to eat what she was putting in front of him. And she comes from an Italian background, and she really wanted him to eat pasta, and he wasn't eating the pasta. And I kind of approached it similar to the way you were talking about it, not to have an anxiety around what you're doing, and not to be fearful or have emotion attached to food, because kids tend to respond to that very, very quickly, and they tend to then want to resist quite easily. So I just gave her some advice similar to what you're saying, to kind of take a step back, let him kind of explore it on his own, in his own way, kind of try and show it in the way that maybe he would want to approach it. So maybe observe the way he does things, and see if that helps out. And she tried that, and within a week he was eating pasta.
Really? That's so cool.
So what you're saying is 100% true. There's a lot of emotion attached to the way kids eat. I know that when I was a kid, there were certain things that my parents wanted me to eat, and they really tried to push it on me. So they wanted me to have what they felt was good. And all that does to kids is it just shuts them down, because it doesn't give kids the opportunity to explore that on their own. And me, being kind of a stubborn person in a lot of ways, I tend to like to find my own way to food.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that, because that's quite useful for a lot of parents who struggle with kids who who just aren't eating what they want them to eat, because sometimes you just got to give them space.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that story as well. There's something very like fascinating what you just said in terms of like how in a short period of time a kid can feel the difference in the parent's concern, and then all of a sudden the kid is more involved or relaxed around food. And yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I found that sometimes, even though kids are really, like at 18-month-old, he's really young, he wanted to have some control over choosing what he wanted to eat, even at that age.
Yeah.
And just giving him that freedom to choose what he wanted opened him up to actually have what she wanted him to have, which was kind of interesting. So, yeah, it was very cool that you shared that.
Yeah.
So thank you. So once again, I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time to answer my questions, even the ones I threw left of field at you, testing your knowledge.
Yeah.
And yeah, just for giving the viewers who are watching this a chance to meet you and to understand a little bit more about nutrition and how they could really help their kids grow and achieve things that they really want to achieve in life. I personally, I've known you for a while now, so I really love what you're dedicated to, and I'm grateful that I've had this opportunity to share your inspirational ideas and some of the advice you've given, and even some of the insights with the people in the community. So thank you.
Yeah. I look forward to even more sharing and all the work, the connections, and being able to be part of what you do, because it's amazing. So thank you for inviting me along in this interview.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my vision is all about incorporating and collecting a bunch of people out there who can really help kids achieve what they want out of life. So I know that health and wellness, the physical side of being, is very, very important to that. And I wanted to include your approach to that purely because, one, you have great insight, but two, because you're kind of fun and childlike in your approach in itself, and I think that's really relatable, and I think as a consequence of that, kids can also respond quite well to that too. So thanks for being on board.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks,
Awesome.
Greg. Thank you.
Cool. Well, I look forward to our next chat,
Yeah.
or our next venture together, but until then, we'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.